Episode 1, Preventing Violence. Segment 1, What is Violence Prevention? Segment 2, Cultural and Community Connectedness. Segment 3, On the Ground. For generations, American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian peoples have faced an ongoing crisis of violence, human trafficking, and an epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous people, also known as Mmip. In fact, Native Americans face a disproportionately high rate of violence. The lasting impact of this ongoing crisis can be felt across Indian country, urban areas, and beyond. More work must be done in order to build safe and healthy tribal communities and keep our Indigenous people and communities whole. My name is Chance Rush, Executive Director of Our Native Men. I'm Hidatsa and enrolled with the 3 affiliated tribes on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. Join us as we consider a path away from repairing the damage that violence causes and start to consider how we, together, can begin the work of keeping us whole. During this podcast series, I will be your guide throughout the country as we speak to Indigenous people from across Turtle Island on how we can engage proactively to prevent Mmip. We'll speak with tribal leaders, community organizers, academic experts, and of course, our partners at the Administration for Native Americans, the Department of Health and Human Services, and other government agencies engaged in this work. Episode 1, Preventing Violence. Segment 1, What is Violence Prevention? This segment will explore the public health approach to violence prevention on how this can impact Native communities. It will also provide a definition of missing and murdered Indigenous people and why it's important to define the Mmip crisis. The major risk and prevention factors for Mmip will be discussed and how much overlap there is with prevention factors and other forms of violence. Unique risk or resources that impact Native Americans will be shared and how risk accumulates over the course of a life. Episode 1, Preventing Violence. Segment 1, What is Violence Prevention? Please welcome Hope McDonald Lone Tree, the Navajo Nation, Deputy Commissioner, Administration for Native Americans, Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Episode 1, Segment 1. We kick this whole thing off, and we would like to welcome Hope McDonald Lone Tree, who is our Deputy Commissioner, Administration for Native Americans, other known as ICNAA, and Administration for Children and Families, a Department of Health and Human Services. Please welcome to the stream the one and only. Please welcome Deputy Commissioner Hope McDonald Lone Tree. Round of applause, round of applause, round of applause. Hey! Wow. Well, first of all, how are you doing today, Deputy Commissioner? How are you doing on this beautiful afternoon?
I am very well. Thank you, Chance. And I am so excited to spend the afternoon with you and share a little bit about what's happening in our communities and perhaps generate some ideas of how we protect our families and our children.
You know, I'm excited to have this moment to visit with you. You know, I know that your father was the president, Peter McDonald, or I should say President McDonald of Navajo Nation, through my years and travels. And I think at the very beginning, I can't remember, but at the very beginning, I remember, you know, I can't remember if it was out in Chin Lee or Shiprock or Window Rock, somewhere out there, you know, the leadership was there and just to, you know, and then it goes over to you as being one of our councilwomen, I believe, for a couple years with Navajo Nation. And, you know, what has that been like to get to be into politics and then to get into, you know, administrative work out in DC? What has that been like, the transition?
It's definitely been a transition for sure. And one thing that I've enjoyed throughout my later years, if you will, is serving the public and and serving my communities in any capacity that I can, whether it's in my regular job or volunteering. But it's very important for me to give back with considering the many ways that I feel like myself, I've been blessed, my family. There's just a lot of work cut out for each of us to improve our world. And so it's exciting for me to take this next step at ANA and offer my expertise and continue to advocate for our communities.
Wow. Um, well, thank you for that. And thank you for all your hard work. Um, Very excited for this episode here. Um, I have to read this. I have to read this part because I know, you're the type of person that you are who you are, and if people know who you are, that's great. That's one thing I really do appreciate about you, Hope, is just always being a humble person. Even like right now, I need to be calling you, deputy commissioner, but I know that you kind of just take it as, yeah, I am Hope, and I'm a grounded person. And I am good people, and you come from a great family. So I
Thank you.
appreciate you being here with us. Hope was the first Native American to be elected to the executive board and to serve as the vice president of the National Foundation for Women Legislators. She has received numerous public service recognitions and honors, including the 2013 elected Woman of Excellence for the National Foundation for Women Legislators and Arizona Citizen of the Year from the National Association of Social Workers. Um, Married with 3 beautiful kids, and also deputy commissioner. You also have the last name of Lone Tree, and so that's real love when you could be from Navajo Nation, and your last name is Lone Tree, which I believe is a Ho Chunk name. So
That's right.
I bet that's a pretty neat story there.
Oh, it is. It definitely is a love story for sure.
Yeah, how'd that come about?
What do you, in what,
How did you meet a Lone Tree? You know, uh,
well,
how did you meet somebody from Wisconsin?
my husband's mother is Navajo
Oh,
and
okay.
she was married to a Ho Chunk.
Oh,
So something about those Ho Chunk men, I guess, right?
right.
But we suspect that, maybe his family had a hand in bringing us together. But we've been together for 24 years.
Oh, wow. Wow. What is something that you have taught your kids to share with others?
To take care of our elderly and to care for others. And I see that in them as they get older, and it makes my heart warm to see that it wasn't something that you teach from a book, but something that they have to witness themselves. And so everything that we did as a family and giving back to others, they feel also is important to them as older children.
Now, how many young men, how many young ladies? Is it all 3 young men, all 3 girls, all?
Our oldest is our daughter, and
Okay.
she's a teacher. And our middle child just graduated. He's looking at his compass, if you will.
Yeah.
And then our youngest is still in high school. And so those are our last 2 are boys.
Okay. Okay. And what have you taught your young men about, our young ladies?
um, Absolute respect. And the way that we have our discussions is about our culture and tradition, and that our
Mhm.
bodies and our persons, our language is sacred.
Mhm.
And that's really what gives them strength and for them to know where they come from. That no
Yeah.
matter what they see on TV, that is not our people, are not our culture. And they really, I think that as they get older, they feel that much more than they did as a child, I think.
Mhm. The reason why I ask, because I mean, in a way, Deputy Commissioner, I just want to unplug with you because I know there's so many people that they have to be on a professional level with you. They have to wear a certain hat with you, but I think it's important sometimes to even just unplug as a mom. Unplug as somebody that hey, I'm a wife. I have 3 beautiful children, And I'm part of the movement as well, because I know that you have to make a lot of really big decisions, whether it's political or from administrative perspective. But I'm glad that I can just sit here and have a word with you. Like I said, I'm still in shock that I'm sitting here with President Peter McDonald's daughter here. So you know, forgive me for just kind of staying in the profession. I mean, the personal lane and not so much the professional lane. The reason why I bring that up about, the importance of your children and what you teach them is because, same thing over here, 6 daughters. And, one of my rules with my daughters is, make sure that you're with somebody, or make sure that you don't do this alone. Make sure you do things, during the day. Um, and I know that you have to add a little more to that, as far as, being, that the hat that you wear and the circles that you're in. So, with saying that, I'll get to some of our questions, but I know that before we can be professional, sometimes we have to be that personable person too that makes an impact on that.
We
So,
must connect. Yes.
yeah, and they go side by side, right?
Mhm.
Uh, so let me ask you the first question. What is the public health approach to violence prevention? And what does that even mean?
The public health approach to violence prevention. Uh, I, I, I think that you and I both know that in our indigenous communities, tribal communities, due to the historic trauma, the level of poverty, and the lack of opportunities, creates a almost a perfect storm of various symptoms that are occurring from our young people to all the way to our elderly. And we find many more victims out there. And so, what we hear a lot these days is that it's a public health crisis because when you're living in an environment that is highly stressful, a lot of anxiety, that also causes a lot of health problems. When you're a victim of a violent crime, you not only have physical um, uh, scars, but it can impact you for the rest of your life, your mental health. It can impact, as close as we are, not just immediate families, but our extended families. That level of trauma has a ripple effect. So it most definitely is a public health issue when it comes to the level of violence and trauma in our communities.
You said a key word here. You talked a little bit about trauma, and we need to understand that in Indian country, in our tribal communities,
Mhm.
we need to bring trauma to light. I mean, I know that it's there, and we have so many advocates, educators who are bringing awareness to this. But for common community members, why is it important for us to understand the perspective of trauma?
It is number one because for most people who are victims of crime or feel themselves um, in a place that has a high level of anxiety or depression, any kind of severe mental health issues, they often feel alone and alienated. And unless they know that others have been through what they've been through, um, it's very easy to just hold it in, not share, and not seek the help that perhaps you would help you heal. And so I think that some of it is cultural, some of it may be a traditional way of 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 dealing with that level of trauma, but it's something that we want to continue to reach out to one another so that we are letting others know that they are not alone.
Yeah, so key. Is to let
Yes.
each other know that you got support, and you got you have a team.
Mhm.
That is so important. And honestly, anybody listening, and if you're out there, if if you're advocating and you're bringing awareness, and you feel like you're alone doing it, or you feel like you may not have the support, let people know. I mean, just like people who need help with any other, any other mental health or whatever it may be, you know, if you want to help people, ask for help, look for those resources so that we can continue to push the importance of community strong,
Mhm.
indigenous strong, tribally strong. Just to kind of unplug too a little bit, as an administrator, as our deputy commissioner, um, what advice could you give us, whether it's, entertainers who are wanting to make a difference, or, you know, um, I'm a motivational speaker, I'm a life coach, what's some advice you could give me, when it comes to, you know, uh, violence prevention? What are some, what could you share with us if we could just listen to our deputy commissioner who has to deal with, the policies and the government and the community, what could you share with us, and how we can play our part in preventing violence in our tribal communities?
I think that's a fantastic question, and there are many different ways. For one, it is really important for us to understand that we have a common home, and for many tribal communities, like I mentioned before, we have extended families. And but more than that, I wanted also to go back to the fact that in our communities we also have a lack of resources and manpower. So it's not as easy to tell people in a podcast or in a video, pick up the phone and call the police or call the hospital for services for whatever you may be feeling. I think it's very important for us to speak directly to people and let them know that they should tell a friend, whether it's one word or a couple words, a sentence. It's very important to connect with somebody. And when you are a friend, you also want to be able to let your friends know that you're looking out for them. And so when we're talking about different ways to for prevention, it really is about taking care of one another. So there's a lot of limited resources in our communities, but our people are the greatest resource. And that means that we do more to encourage people to reach out to one another, whether they're family or friends, and to look out for one another. So I hear sometimes um, in conversations that I'm involved in, or even in social media, that these young kids are saying, "Hey, I saw a strange van driving in our neighborhood. You all be careful or look out for it." And so it's unfortunate that our kids have to be their own, be on their own lookout,
Hmm.
but we want to teach our kids to be safe and to protect their loved ones. And one great example is I picked up our youngest, and he was probably about 8 years old, and we were going to the grocery store to get groceries. As I was pulling into the parking lot, I was getting ready to park, and my son says, "No, don't park there." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because that van next to us looks sketchy."
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so, I was shocked that this is my 8-year-old son telling me this because, that wasn't the first thing on my mind. But education goes a long way, and so does awareness.
Hmm.
And I think that we, the logical thing is to pick up the phone and call the police. And absolutely, we want people to do that, and reach out for help from our places of healing, whether it's traditional or at the hospital. But we want people to start caring for one another. And I
Hmm.
think that's really it's something that we have to unlearn, and that is to depend on someone else to take care of our families and our friends. And so we want to go back to taking care of one another. And it doesn't mean that you have to get in trouble yourself, but meaning that you seek resources, or tell somebody that your friend is feeling depressed or might be suicidal. Those are
Hmm.
important indicators, or that your friend is at risk of running away. I know that, and in my one of my last positions as a consultant at USDOJ, we had more and more serious crimes that were stemming from social media, where
Mm-hmm.
our young people were meeting strangers. And so there's a lot of education awareness that needs to be done there. So that's what I mean, that there's a lot of things that we can do together in the messaging that we get out, but talking directly to people and helping us come together as one.
Mm-hmm. You know, and to piggyback off what you're saying, you know, like, yes, we need to make sure that, you know, we know where everybody is all the time. And it doesn't mean like to, you know, hound them and, you know, where
Right.
you at, where you at, you know, because I would do that, you know, I mean, 7 kids, I would do that. Like, where you at now? Where you at now? Where you at now? Like, I mean, took my daughter to the train yesterday. She wanted to take the train from here back to college. She could have flown. She could have, I could have drove her up there, but she's like, Dad, I want to take the train because a lot of my classmates take the train. So,
Mhm.
I mean, driving her over there, just in her ear, you know, got her checked in, like she was a 4-year-old, checked her in, sat with her, didn't go until, you know, I know there was a bench there, you know, didn't even, I watched her get on the train, you know, and that's just what we do, right?
Mhm.
Deputy Commissioner, that's what we do as parents. But,
Right.
you know, she kind of, you know, was saying, hey, Dad, I got this, you know, but we can never not do so much. But the point I'm trying to make on my end is, you know, yeah, we don't have to hound every second of the way, but we do have to make sure that we know where our kids are,
Mhm.
and we do need to, you know, keep things in line. You know, let someone know, hey, you know, call me when you get there, or, you know, make sure you know, take a picture if you know, if anything goes on, or hey, send a picture and let me know how things are going. So, what kind of brings to what we were both talking about, you know, the importance of, you know, this podcast here, you know, keeping us whole, you know, keeping
Mhm.
us whole, keeping us together, keeping us as one. So I just have to ask, you know, uh, how do you define MMIP, which is missing and murdered Indigenous persons? You know, what's your definition of that? And if you can elaborate on it.
It is, it's a, it's been an issue and a problem for decades upon decades. And we're really happy that it's getting the light that it deserves, because we need help.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be talking about what is happening, what is the end result, which is somebody losing their life. We need to talk about what some of those risk factors are for our people going missing, and what does it take to address each of them. And there's data in different pockets that we have to continue to improve upon. But more than that, I really want to go back to what we're doing locally,
Mm-hmm.
and how that is that we're looking out for one another, what kind of mechanisms that we have in our neighborhoods, what kind of mechanisms we have in our communities, in our tribal nations,
Wow.
that need to be improved. So, is it a is it something that that federal programs, state programs can help with? There's seed money that is available to do that, or is it really the community getting together and saying, this is what we can do in our neighborhood, this is what we can do to help the limited resources that are out there? Because number one, Chance, is we need to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we think there's a false belief that the judicial system is going to do that, or that the hospital is going to do that. But the mental scars that are left in our people is can be devastating, and can devastate your family. I mean, imagine if something terrible happened to one of your kids or one of mine; it would be devastating to our entire family.
Yeah.
And so, those are things that we need to consider and think about. Be creative, and what can we do? And we know, Chance, we know our ancestors we're very strong in that way, and that all of our stories, our cultural teachings, our activities, the cultural activities we have revolve around family and
Hmm.
extended
Hmm.
family and the clans, friends in our community.
Yeah. And we need to be more of a family. And I'm not just talking about you being Dene or Navajo, me being Hidatsa or Dakota. Like we as tribal people need to be a family, and continue to come together, not to reflect on anything, but think about the situation with the girl, that a month ago. I mean, it's unfortunate that we have girls and young men go every day, you know, that we you and I don't even know when the last one was, you know, taken or whatever it may be, because there's not that attention. And that's what you're saying, is that we can't wait on media, we can't wait on the news. We have to, what you're sharing is a, primary preventive measurements, doing things before they happen. You said something that was really important. You said, it's got to start locally, in our communities. um, in saying that, let me ask you this before I let you go, because I know you're busy. Why focus on the whole community instead of just the survivors or at-risk people? Why do we need to, you know, uh, hone in and focus on the whole community when it comes to MMIP?
Because we have to support one another. I heard there was a campaign probably a decade or more so ago. It was called Start by Believing, and it really focused on victims. And so when people who are victimized don't feel like they're supported, whether it's family, friends, or in the community. And I know that it's very difficult in our tribal communities. Um, just the work that I did at USDOJ, these victims are getting it from both families, the perpetrator and their
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I say community, because we have to come together as a community to decide that we have to support and protect these victims and provide resources for them, because if they feel like they are not supported, it begins that cycle that we do not want any of our loved ones, anyone for that matter, to go through. And so it always, we have a lot of communities who have different levels of crime and poverty and violence. And some communities, they might have more men who go
Mm-hmm.
missing. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is also an issue. But we really want to focus on how we're reaching out. So if there's a 10-year-old who's a victim of violent crime, they go back to school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who and how are they being tended to while
Right.
they are there? Are we
Right.
just saying, hi, Bobby, welcome back? Are our teachers and staff and school boards trained to know how to deal with trauma? Otherwise, we know what happens. He gets sent to the principal's office. We're acting out. He starts failing because he can't concentrate, and then he or she might get expelled. And then what happens? They fall into the wrong crowd. If they've been traumatized, maybe they self medicate, maybe they harm themselves or others. And then what happens after that? The other initiative I worked with at USDOJ was reentry. So if we are not helping that 8-year-old when they were first traumatized and further trauma continues after that, we're talking about reentry for them, of how we reintegrate them back into the community with a lot of issues, including mental health, after they've been incarcerated. So there is a pipeline, and we don't want our kids to go through that. We want we want to be able to provide them a space to heal. And not everyone heals the same, but we should be concentrating on how we get there.
Yeah. And what are some resources, because there may be, some watching that they may not know that there's resources out there, you working, in the administration, and, what could be a big takeaway for tribal communities, indigenous communities, that to partner with the government, and what resources are out there to help us, prevent MMIP?
We have at the Administration for Native Americans, we have seed money to help you plant any kind of program or initiative that is going to help the well-being of your communities. We also, under the Administration for Children and Families, we have many programs also that provide grants. And so I encourage those people who are interested in applying for federal grants to go to the HHS website and the Administration for Children and Families, as well as the Administration for Native Americans, to see what types of grants that we have. And we have a lot of great technical assistance providers who are able to assist from the beginning of your interest in the grants. And we are happy to help in any way. I mean, it is IHS is well known because of their direct medical care. The Administration for Native Americans is not that well known. We are not a large program, but the grant funding that we provide has provided some enormous help in communities to establish programs that have lasted for decades, for that matter.
And what's that website over at ANA?
So now you're going to ask me.
Oh, my bad. Well, I just,
I think if you could.
We can just Google it or whatever, but you're right on. There is those resources out there. There is that funding out there. I probably shouldn't ask that question because I know someone was supposed to provide that, so I do apologize. But I'm very grateful and thankful for your time, and anybody out there, you guys can track down the location for HHS, ANA, and I think it was AC. It was
ACF.
The ACF.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I don't know if there's, if you have a website, you could also post the link to our websites.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll make sure that we get all that information out there. We'll put this up. This is, all coming together. So we'll make sure at the end of this segment, we will have all the information, all the websites that you can log on to look for resources and also for grants. But with that being said, hey, listen, I know it's a Tuesday afternoon. I know that you've got to get to go be with your family, but with us again, we had the one and only, she won't brag, so I'll brag. We have our Deputy Commissioner, Hope McDonald Lone Tree. Thank you for being on with us. And you guys are listening to the first episode, the first segment. All right, we kicked it off right. So don't forget to join us. We will be having Delight coming on with us. Delight will be with us for our second session. Delight Satter from the Grand Ron tribe. Thank you very much. And everybody out there listening, we do appreciate you. A big shout out to ANA, Keeping Us Whole, presented by Administration for Native Americans and our Native Men. You were listening to the episode, Preventing Violence. What is violence prevention? Again, we had Boss Lady on herself. Okay, so everybody, you guys all have a good night. And thank you guys for tuning in. And be sure to listen to our second segment. All right, with that being said, we're going to go call it an evening. Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chance. Take care.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening in. We do appreciate that. And man, good words from our Deputy Commissioner over at ANA. And, I'm just grateful that she took time out to be with us. So, okay, with that being said, we will see you guys on the second segment. Chance Rush in the building with our Native Men and Chance with Greatness.
Please visit the following websites to identify federal resources to assist communities in preventing MMIP. The Administration for Children and Families, ACF, MMNA Framework landing page. https://www.acf.hhs.gov/ANA/MMNA-framework. ACF's Family and Youth Services Bureau Domestic Violence Resource Network, https://www.acf.hhs.gov/www.acf.hhs.gov/FV-centers. The Administration for Native Americans Domestic Violence Awareness Public Service Announcements. https://www.acf.hhs.gov/ANA/domestic-violence-PSAs. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Violence Prevention Resource Page. https://www.cdc.gov/violence prevention. U.S. Department of the Interior's Indian Affairs Missing and Murdered Unit. www.bia.gov/service/MMU. U.S. Department of Justice Mmip landing page. www.justice.gov/tribal/MMIP. We would like to thank all the speakers for their time, support, and dedicated commitment to the MMIP podcast series. Through continued advocacy and collaboration, we can work together to end the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous people, MMIP. Developed by the Administration for Native Americans, hosted by Chance Rush, recorded and produced by Our Native Men, Inc., Our Native Men, Inc., studio in Dallas, Texas, Tribal Unite Productions, studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The views and opinions of featured speakers on the MMIP podcast series are solely theirs and should not be attributed to the Department of Health and Human Services, the Administration for Children and Families, or the Administration for Native Americans.